God. But oftentimes we are ready to go to blows with people because what we have put as an idol in front of us is greater of importance to us than our relationship with Jesus and even the Word of God. This is all in our text today, and we are often guilty of all three at the same time. We're guilty of doubt and skepticism and idolatry because we doubt the power of God's word to change our situation. We are skeptic that anyone is truly experiencing the blessings of God as promised in his word, and we often idolize undeserving people and things without even recognizing it. And some of us have got some idols in our lives right now. People who have cannot challenge status in our lives, people who have they can't do no wrong status in our lives, and God wants us to get them people off the altar and put our relationship with Jesus as the first and the greatest priority in our lives. An unfailing trust in God requires us to take Jesus at his word and believe that he will do just what he said he would do. John chapter 11 records a miracle of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. This miracle performed by Jesus is only recorded in the Gospel of John. And one of the most drama-packed moments in the Bible, the writer of the Gospel of John leaves no details out. He gives us a vivid illustration of not only the work of God through his son Jesus, but also the response of the people as they are hearing the gospel message. One of the most drama-packed moments in the Bible comes as Jesus called out loudly to Lazarus in the open tomb. And the old preachers used to say that it's a good thing that he said Lazarus come forth, because if he'd have just said come forth, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all would have got up out of the graveyard at Bethany. But if you could only imagine the shock and the amazement when the crowd witnessed Lazarus with his grave clothes on, walking out of a dark cave into the marvelous light. What were the immediate reactions of his sister Mary and Martha? Some have asked. What a wonderful homecoming this must have been for the brother of Mary and Martha. Some miracles happen only if we believe. And other miracles happen because we believe. But still, there are other miracles that happen that will cause others to believe. That's the miracle that I want to talk about today. It's not that you have to prove anything to yourself. It's not that you have to prove anything to God. There are some doubters and some skeptics and some idolaters in our midst today that they need to see God perform a miracle through you so that they can, for the first time in their life, have a faithful relationship with God. How do we do it? How do we develop an unfailing trust in God? I have made up in my mind that the biggest frown in the world ain't going to take my joy. That this devil in the church ain't going to run me from the church. The meanest man or the meanest woman in the world can't take away my joy, because I already know what God can do for me. I already know what God can do for my family. I already know what God can do for my church. I just need God to work a miracle in me so I can wake up some nappy heads and some doubtful minds and some idolatrous and skeptic people. So what does God have to do to deal with an idolatrous and a skeptic and a doubting generation? Couldn't it be opening up blinded eyes? Wouldn't that be enough? Couldn't it be turning water to wine? Wouldn't that be enough? Couldn't it be healing Peter's mother-in-law? Couldn't it be taking 2 fish and 5 loaves and feeding 5,000? All of these things Jesus had already done in the sight of others, and they had experienced a miracle, but they still doubted that he was the Son of God. So God is still using Jesus to work a miracle, not to prove to Jesus that he was the Son of God. Not even prove to his own disciples that he was the Son of God. But to prove to the doubters that even in their doubts, God can still work a miracle. Look at lesson number 1. This is how we do it. We got to remove the barriers that block our faith. Look at your neighbor and say, you got to remove it. After a detailed exchange between Jesus and Mary and Jesus and Martha and Jesus and the disciples, and after Jesus weeps after they didn't believe the message that he was going to come and see about Lazarus, Jesus says, show me where you have laid him, and he goes to the mouth of the cave to foreshadow his own resurrection by telling the people of Bethany to take the stone away. My brothers and sisters, this is the Son of God giving the people some instructions of what to do in order to see a miracle. He had the power to move the stone all by himself. He had the power to go and pick up the stone himself, but he gets the people to participate in the miracle because they are never going to see different results until they start doing something different. The stone, the same way the stone was put over the grave to cover Lazarus up, is the same way the stone was going to be removed to get Lazarus out. And the things that we have done in this church and in this community are not in vain. There are some good works that are still blessing people even to this day, but there are people who are trying to block the good news and replace it with bad news. Let me show you the word as it says remove. He's telling them the word arrow, which means to lift up, to take it away. In other words, many of us have had God take burdens away for us only to go back to the same Negro or the same negrette to pick up the same burdens all over again. God done took them out of your life, but you still on Facebook seeing what's on his Facebook page. You lost her phone number, but you still calling her cousins, asking if what her new number is. You are still allowing the barriers that are in your life for a reason to be removed in such a way where you are looking for an idol to take the place of God instead of allowing that barrier to be removed so you can see God for the first time in your life. See, as long as mom and daddy keep doing it for you, you can't see God. As long as your brother and sister keep doing it for you, you can't see God. As long as everybody else is doing it for you, you can never see God for yourself because you think it's them that's doing it, but you don't see that God placed them in a path of your life for a season only for you to now learn how to totally put your trust and your faith in him. Jesus could have did a whole lot of things to get Lazarus out of the grave, but he wanted to make sure the people were a part of the process. So he said, remove the stone. There are stones that are blocking our vision. They're blocking our pathway. They're blocking what potential that we may have so that we can see the very best that God has for us. And all God is telling you is that if you really want the miracle, you got to get it out of the way. Some stuff we're asking God to move, and he's telling you to move it. Nothing wrong with your thumbs. You can delete the numbers out of your phone right now. Ain't nothing wrong with your fingers. You can type up and log into your social media page and unfriend some people. And you ain't got to ask God to do that. He's asking you to do it, but see if you really want a miracle. So we got to remove the barriers that block our faith. Next thing we got to do is remember the blessings of belief. Just name say, remember the blessing. In other words, many times we are desperate and don't want to admit it. We need God to work a miracle right now. But we forget about all the other miracles he worked for us back then. And there's a blessing. I'm a living witness, right? I can shout right here. There's a blessing in remembering the miracles of what he did back then. Because that gives you power that you didn't know that you had. And what Jesus is doing in this prayer, many of us forget that this is a prayer he prayed to his Father in the presence of doubting people. And this is how this society has become since we took prayer out of schools, is that our children think that the only place that they're supposed to pray is in a religious setting. But children, let me remind you is, I don't care if you're in school with the biggest atheists, just because they took prayer out of school doesn't mean they can take prayer out of you. So when you're dealing with some bullies and some big heads in school, you need to look up to the sky and say, God, I thank you for having heard me. The same people that wanted to stone Jesus were standing there watching him pray. And in this prayer, he says, I knew that you have always heard me. But I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here. Jesus is saying that I ain't saying this for my sake, Daddy. I'm saying it for them. In other words, Jesus already knew that it was God that sent him to redeem the sins of the world. Jesus already knew that it was his Father that gave him the power to turn water into wine. Jesus already knew that it was his Father that gave him the power to take the 2 fish and 5 loaves and feed 5,000. So Jesus did not need to be convinced. And some of us are worried about the pastor, but the pastor is going to be all right. Some of us need to worry about ourselves. It ain't whether or not the pastor believes. It ain't about what Reverend Peterson or Reverend Boyce believe. The real question is, do I believe? Remember, the blessings look something like this. He says, I knew. That word oida means to remember or to appreciate. And the reason why people are so skeptic and so idolatrous and such big doubters is because they're really ungrateful. That's the root of the issue. That's the root issue. When you don't have an attitude of gratitude, you will walk around life with your behind on your shoulders thinking somebody owe you something. I'm telling the truth. Look at what God already had done for these people. And they still didn't want to say thank you. Look at how good God had been to them by sending his son to them. And they still didn't believe that he was the Son of God, even though by this point he already had worked about 25 miracles. My brothers and sisters, Jesus said, I knew that you always hear me. My brothers and sisters, I remember the things the Lord has done for me, just like he did them on yesterday. And it's my obligation and my duty, whether people are pouting or shouting, to tell people that God is a good God and he's worthy to be praised. Even if they believe or they don't believe, what God is doing for us is he's putting us around a lot of negative, frowning people so that we can still show what faith is like in the midst of darkness. He didn't want us to be a light among light. He wanted us to be a light among darkness, because if you can't praise him in the graveyard, you sure can't praise him in the sanctuary. If you remember, look at your neighbor and say, I remember. There were times when we weren't thinking about God. And he showed us that we were still on his line. This is why Mary and Martha were upset. They thought that Jesus wasn't thinking about them because he was their friend. You remember in Luke chapter 10, he had dinner at their house, and Mary and Martha were arguing over who should be helping in the kitchen. And while Martha was making the meal, Mary was sitting at Jesus' feet. These are the same sisters that are talked about in Luke chapter 10. And Jesus says that you are worried about too many things, Martha. He says, Mary has chosen the better part. And this is what we should be doing while we're in the graveyard of ministry. We need to be standing at the feet of Jesus, remembering what he said, so that we can minister to the mean people in the graveyard. It's ironic that Jesus is getting ready to work a miracle in the graveyard, because Lazarus was not the only dead person in the graveyard. There were more dead people standing outside the cave than the one dead man that was inside the cave. And whether you think it or not, just because you got blood in your veins and breath in your lungs does not mean that you're living, because you really don't live until you learn to have a conscious faith in God. When you are aware that it was God all along that has saw you from point A to point B. It wasn't the people that helped you that was doing it. It was God using people in the pathway of life so you could understand how to exercise real faith. John paints a picture for us to see how desperate everyone is. He tells us about the wailing, tells us about the mourning, tells us about the crying. He tells us about the criticism. He tells us about all of the things that were said about Jesus, around Jesus, and even to Jesus, to show how desperate the people were to have a miracle worked in their situation. And whether we want to be honest or not, we are not very different than the people in John chapter 11. I know the city is called Bethany, but there's also a city that's called Greenville, where there are over 400 churches in this county, and there's still people in the church that do not believe that God can work a miracle. Remember the blessings of belief. But thirdly, respond to the call in faith. Now wait a minute now. Most of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, we believe that this story is just an allegory. We don't really believe that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead who had been dead 4 days. We're not willing to admit that in the Sunday school class or in sanctuary, but in our hearts, we just can't envision a man being Jesus' friend, getting a message that his friend was sick, and Jesus staying 2 more days where he was and taking another 2 days to get to where Lazarus was. And by this time, Lazarus already had been dead 4 days, and Jesus telling people to take the stone away, and then looking at the opening of a cave and saying, Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus came out. Be honest with yourself. You don't really believe that. Some of us don't even believe that paying our tithe is going to bless us. So don't sit here and tell me that you believe that Jesus raised Lazarus from the grave. But the text says that he did it. So I'm glad I'm not by myself. I'm in the midst of a few people that really believe that this is not an allegory, but this was a literal historical event, that Jesus stood at the mouth of the grave in Bethany, in the graveyard of the Bethany cemetery, and called out, Lazarus, come forth. I'm like the old preacher. I'm so glad that he said, Lazarus, come forth. Because if he hadn't said Lazarus, Abraham would have got up, Isaac would have gotten up, and Jacob would have gotten up. But he didn't call Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. He called for Lazarus. Somebody said, why did Lazarus respond to the call? Because Lazarus knew that following Jesus in the land of the living was better than waiting in the land of the dying. My brothers and sisters, it's so good for Jesus to call us by name, because that means that he has a blessing in store for each and every one of us. The text says that when he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. The Bible says the dead man came out. His hands and feet were bound. He had strips of cloth. His face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, unbind him. Let him go. Most of the church thought the work of the ministry was over when they moved the stone away. But Jesus worked the miracle after they moved the stone away. And now that they had evidence of a miracle, he gives them more instructions of taking the grave clothes off of Lazarus. Some of us have been raised from a dead situation, but we still got our grave clothes on. And what we got to get today is some help from our neighbor and have them take the grave clothes off of us. And this is why the hymn writer made the song that says, I am redeemed. I've been bought with a price. Jesus has changed my whole life. What that message is for us is that he don't want you just out of the grave. He also wants you out of your grave clothes. So if you can't praise God in the graveyard, you sure can't praise him in the sanctuary. And I ain't got just a sanctuary praise. I also got a graveyard praise. I just need somebody to let me go. It's not the problem that you're dealing with that's the real issue. It's how you respond to the problem. Every situation in the life of a believer is an opportunity for you to respond in faith. Why didn't God just send Lazarus through a brick wall and have him show up in front of the people? Why didn't God just have Jesus say abracadabra and move the stone? Why didn't God just have Lazarus spin around 3 times and the clothes fall off by themselves? He didn't do it that way because he wanted to show that the church is still relevant. The church still has an obligation to ministry in the graveyard. The ministry doesn't begin in the sanctuary. The ministry of the church is in the graveyard, even with the smelly people. Just neighbor say you got to respond. When you respond to the call in faith, it comes from the word erhomai, which means to go out. It literally means to come out. My brothers and sisters, God has been too good for me to stay in one place. He's telling me to go out to Houston, to go out to Chesney, to go out to Greenwood, to go out to different places and preach the gospel, even if the people that I'm preaching to every Sunday don't want to hear it. He's going to call me to some places where people do want to hear it. That's because he's good, and he wants you to have enough faith to not only know he's good to you, but to convince others who look like they don't believe that he can still use you to work a miracle. Everybody ain't going to smile every time you got a word from God. Everybody ain't going to shout because God has used you to work a miracle. Sometimes people are going to be skeptic and doubtful just because they feel like it's their right to be skeptic and doubtful. But that didn't stop Jesus. He's using Lazarus to end the miracle the same way that God is using him in the miracle, is to show that you got to participate in faith of what you are saying that you want God to do. There are generations of Christians who have faced death with a new faith since God emptied the tomb of Lazarus. It's no surprise that Jesus, his own tomb, stood empty several weeks later on a Sunday morning, because God is in the business of not only working miracles, but he's also in the business of growing our faith. Jesus not only talked like one who had the power of life over death, but he also acted like one who had the power of life over death. And for the same reason, we should have a grounded faith in Jesus, not only because of our experience with him, but also because of our ability to be used by him. If you want to be used by the Lord, let me wave your hand and say, Lord, use me. Sometimes we are blessed because of no faith in God. I know you've been singing that song for years. We've come this far by faith, but the truth of the matter is there are people here today that are still living who have never believed in God. Sometimes we are blessed because of other people's faith. This is why we have to thank God for the mothers and the grandmothers who kept praying for us when we didn't know how to pray for ourselves. But also there are times when we are blessed because of our own faith in God. We have had an experience with God. We know that he has not only saved us and raised us, but we're willing to try again through hardship, trials, and tribulations. My brothers and sisters, it doesn't stop there. The greatest blessing is not just when you're blessed by somebody else's faith, or blessed by no faith at all, or even blessed by your own faith. The greatest blessing is when we believe because we know that we are an instrument of our own faith, meaning that we may not even benefit from the miracle that's about to take place, because the miracle that's about to happen is not for us, it's for bringing somebody else to Jesus. And I'm so glad that he's still using me, not to get me an inch closer to heaven, but that somebody else may get into heaven because of what he's doing through me. I got a witness here today that not only will God bless you because of somebody else's faith, not only will God bless you because of no faith at all, but God will bless you because of your own faith, but he also will bless you so that somebody else may be blessed. If you believe, church, we can turn this evil world around. If you believe, church, we can turn the biggest doubters into the biggest shouters. If you believe, church, we can turn hate into love. We can turn dark into light. We can turn fear into hope. We can turn evil into good only if we believe. My brothers and sisters, this is why Jesus performed the miracle. The miracle was not for Mary. The miracle was not for Martha. The miracle was not even for Lazarus. The miracle was for the unbelievers in Bethany. And whether you believe it or not, in 2017, after God has brought us through slavery and through Jim Crow, after he's brought us through civil rights and has brought us into the marvelous light, we still got some doubters in Bethany. There's still people that do not believe that God can work a miracle in their situation. I know you might be in the graveyard of ministry right now, but even in the graveyard of ministry, God is saying, if you believe. If you believe Lazarus, when you come out of that grave, the same people who were putting the grave clothes on you will be the same people that take the grave clothes off of you. I'm so glad that God didn't leave me in my grave clothes. I'm so glad that I am still here, not because of my own faith, but because of the faith that others had in me. I'm so glad that he's still using me to work a miracle so that somebody else might believe. This is what Jesus did when he said, Lazarus, come forth. He said, Lazarus, come forth, to tell us who already believe that when somebody sees you coming out of the graveyard, that God is still a miracle worker. Not only for you to grow in your faith, so that they for the first time in their life can actually have some faith. Somebody sit here today and say, preacher, how can you figure that I don't have any faith? I've been coming to church for 42 years. Should that count for something? But being in church doesn't make you a Christian any more than being in a garage makes you a car. You got to have some faith to not only hear the word, but also do the word. This is why when I was a little boy, I used to sing a song that when he calls me, I will answer. That's what Lazarus was doing. He had dead worms in his body. Rigor mortis had already set in. He was on the other side of the mountain. He had went from the physical to the spiritual. He was walking around Abraham's bosom. But when he heard Jesus call him by name, his spirit had to come back to his body. Get in his old rigor mortis body. Life had to come back to his lungs. Blood had to come back to his veins. He had to hop on out of the graveyard with the doors open, with his face wrapped up, with his feet wrapped up, with a shroud around his hands. And when he said, Lazarus, come forth, he came forth saying, it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. I got to get out of here. But somebody here has heard the story. That's a true story about a man named Mr. Bill Snyder. Mr. Snyder was heavy. He was a bit overweight. And one day he went to his doctor. And the doctor put him on a strict diet. The doctor said, if you eat regularly for 2 days and then skip a day, you need to repeat this for the next 2 weeks. And the next time I see you, you would have already lost 5 pounds. Mr. Snyder nodded his head. He came back to the doctor 2 weeks later, and to the doctor's surprise, Mr. Snyder had not only lost 5 pounds, but he had lost 20 pounds. The doctor said, that's amazing. How did you lose all this weight? Did you lose all this weight just by following my instructions? Mr. Snyder responded, said, yes, but I thought I was going to drop dead on the 3rd day. The doctor said, did you get hungry? Is that why you thought you were going to drop dead? And Mr. Snyder said, no, I thought I was going to drop dead from skipping all day. And I just got to tell somebody, is that the reason why you missing your blessing is that you're skipping when you should be fasting. And some of you are blessed when you're skipping and not realizing that God is using your skipping on each 3rd day to wake you up to your next miracle. You're going to come in stronger. You're going to come in wiser. You're going to come in better because you know that God can work a miracle. If you believe, you can lose weight. If you believe, you can destroy your marriage. If you believe, you can be financially blessed. But you gotta believe. You gotta take the doctor at his word and believe that God can use you to work a miracle. Is anybody here know that God is a miracle worker? Is anybody here glad he is a way maker? Is there anybody here that know that God is good all the time? And all the time, God God is good? Do you know him? Do you love him? Have you tried him? Is he your Savior? If you know it, say yes. Say yes. Ah, yes. If you believe, if you believe, if you believe, if you believe, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. No, God will do what he said he would do. He will stand by his word. He will come through. No weapon, no weapon formed against me. So those in church are open. I don't care what's in your way, it won't work. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. It won't work. I know what God will do. I know God will do what he said he will do. He will stand by his word. He will come through. I know God. God will do what he said he would do. He will stand by his word. He will come through. No weapon formed against me. Against me shall prosper. It won't work. One more time. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. It won't work. It won't work. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ. We thank you for